It's really cool that they caught your spontaneous stand-up routine in the middle there. It's like,
You're listening to The Cosmic Cast.
Hello, and welcome back to another season of The Cosmic Cast. It's really lovely to see you all again. I'm John Pernay-Fisher, and we're joined with the usual collection of hosts of Marissa Lowe.
Hello.
Here is right over there.
Hello.
And down here, Thomas Harvey.
hello.
And Elliot Carter.
Hello.
So, welcome back. Season number 3. We've been somewhat busy over the summer. Actually, not really. I don't really feel like... I don't know what I've done over the summer. Do you guys feel like it's been a busy summer?
I haven't registered that summer happened, to be honest.
No, I guess, working in lockdown, it's a bit of a sort of a time vacuum, isn't it, really?
Like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, a bit of Groundhog Day, yeah. So, we're all still working from home. The university has only slowly started to reopen some labs, although my lab has only really just opened. So, in fact, next week at the time of recording, I'll be going in for the first time, which is quite exciting. But yeah, I mean, I guess some of you don't really. Tom, you've been into the lab a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been these last few weeks. It's been quite nice.
Yeah.
It's just it's stuff that I was doing before lockdown. I'd find quite difficult or time consuming, and now it's just a joy to do something that's not sitting in front of a desk. So
yeah, it's really nice, isn't it, to start to move around again? And then I guess Marissa, you didn't really use the lab very much. So how have you been finding that? Are you jealous of people getting back into the labs and stuff?
I'm very glad I don't need to deal with any of the paperwork that comes with going back into the lab.
Yeah, some beefy risk assessments.
Yeah, but at some point next week, I might be going into my office to use the computer that's in there. I only have access to Windows at home, whereas the computer in my office runs Linux. And I've set up remote access, but it's very, very slow. So trying to run numerical models takes a lot longer. So I'm going to be popping in for a couple of days at some point just to get through a backlog of different model runs that I want to do. So that should be quite nice. It'd be very, very strange because obviously the last memory we have of being in the department was middle of March, everyone grabbing their plants and whatever equipment they could, and then that was it.
Yes.
It's going to be strange going back in.
Yeah, it is strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I popped it back in a couple of weeks ago. So the SEM and the XRD, we're not allowed to run ourselves, but the lab techs are there. So I had to go in to pick up my samples. I basically went to my office, got my samples, went down, gave them, and then walked off. That was it.
Yeah,
that was my experience of being back in the universe. Yeah, exactly. That is science for you.
So have you been controlling it remotely, or do you give them a map saying these?
No, it's super difficult because you just have to tell them what you want done to the samples, which an SEM, for the people who don't know, takes very high resolution images of your sample.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't know what you want done until you've actually looked at the sample itself. So telling a lab tech, can you do something to it when I don't know what's actually inside of it is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Actually, that's surprising they're not letting you in the lab by yourself.
Maybe it's a rule that just applies to me.
Yeah, maybe. That's plausible, actually. I've heard a few people saying, here comes Ricky. Don't let him in the lab yet.
Yeah, that was before COVID. They wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You heard what happened the last time you went near the SEM.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, best, no, we Josh, of course. Ricky is a very well-respected lab user. Yeah.
Accomplished.
Accomplished.
Respected lab user.
Just in case any future employers are watching. Yeah.
Thank you.
But Elliot, you're in Ireland.
I am in Ireland. Yeah, I've had the joy of moving countries in a pandemic. It's been interesting. It's been very surreal. So I'd visited Ireland once before, but I've moved over here to start a postdoc.
Yeah. So so you cleared your desk at some point in the summer.
Yeah, that was bizarre. I was looking around for my lab stuff, and half it was in the box, and I was like, well, where is half of it? And it was on the side. I'd washed it up the end of one day, ready to start again the next morning. Never come back. And it was just still there 6 months later, just sat on the side clean.
Yeah. Do you know what? Actually, it was a bit weird, wasn't it? 'Cause we popped into the office a few months ago, and like, all the calendars were still open at March, and my to-do list was all like, it was like a little time capsule, wasn't it? Preserved in Aspic or whatever. Yeah.
Had you finished the to-do list?
Probably not.
He's still doing it now. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, and so then you moved to Ireland. So how was that moving countries then?
Yeah, really strange. Like,
did you fly?
I flew, yeah. So like the morning I got the flight, I was like running around stressing. I was like, I need to lose 5 kilograms out of my suitcase in the next 20 minutes. I'm going to miss this flight.
So you removed the cat.
And then it's such a short flight. So I was all het up. I was like, okay, I'm moving countries. I'm finally on the flight. And then it's like 20 minutes. I barely stopped sweating and I'm there.
Yeah.
It's just really bizarre.
Yeah.
And then I've had to quarantine here for 2 weeks. So
yeah.
Just been pottering around the house.
Yeah, well, that's pretty exciting. But you're not actually at the time of recording started yet. So you've not been into the department or anything where you're at.
I've gone for a brief walk and looked at the outside of it.
Yeah. So you're now at University College Dublin, isn't it? Is that right?
Trinity College Dublin.
Trinity College, sorry, yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to be looking at some basalts from Northern Ireland, which erupted like just before the Atlantic opened. Basically.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, Giant's Causeway and the like.
Yes, so that comes exactly in the middle of the things I'm looking at. So I'm going to be looking at the stuff before and after the Giant's Causeway.
Nice. Well, that's really cool.
Really trying to work out what's going on in the mantle while those.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Like the British Tertiary, like there's not been a huge amount of work on that recently, has there? Really, I think there's a lot of scope to do some interesting things, tying it into like Icelandic geochemistry and Canadian geochemistry, just sort of tie up the plume a bit.
That's exactly the idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's all right, Elliot. You got there first.
How do you feel about having moved?
I don't know. I feel a lot of things. It's quite strange. Like Ireland's really interesting because it's like almost exactly the same as the UK in many ways, and then suddenly startlingly different. Just like, oh, well, the bread's different. No, they don't. And then, but like the Walker's crisps are the same, but then the bread's. And then
because I guess presumably like architecturally the city must be quite similar to like walking through Victorian High Street.
I mean, like South Dublin reminds me of South Manchester in some ways, to be honest.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And everything's euros, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't have much experience beyond the supermarket and my house at the moment because I'm not allowed to go anywhere. And also we've just gone back to like a higher state of lockdown, so nowhere's got indoor dining. There's no pubs open. They serve food at the moment, so. And I'm not allowed to go to them anyway.
Yeah.
But once you start, are you going into the department or is the department closed?
I'm not entirely clear. I need to find that out. I think maybe I'm allowed to go. I think I'm allowed to go in if I need to do stuff. I'm not clear on whether I'm allowed to go in just to sit at a desk.
Yeah, probably not, I would have thought. Yeah.
But I've got this nice olivine cave to...
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, isn't it? It's great they've been able to move that olivine cave from Manchester to Dublin, actually. Yeah.
It cost a bit. I got a guy with a van to drive it over.
Yeah.
Cash in hand.
Cash in hand, yeah. Olivine in hand. Just pay him in San Carlos.
Yeah. I'm sure he declared any of that money that you gave him, obviously. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
How are you feeling about starting a postdoc? And also a question for you, John and Ricky. How different is it from doing a PhD?
How am I feeling? At the moment, I am feeling mainly, I really need to tie off my PhD papers because if I don't finish them now, I never will.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So that's my current source of stress. I honestly haven't thought that far. I mean, I've started planning field work, but I haven't really thought I'm doing a postdoc. In some ways, it feels like another project. It just sort of feels a bit like starting my PhD again.
I guess it must be a bit different anyway, since you don't have that experience of going in, meeting new people, and doing all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're still at the end of the day in a room doing stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I don't know if I'll have some kind of induction. It doesn't feel much like I'm going to have something like that at the moment. But yeah, you're right. That would really kind of cement that. Okay, I'm not starting a new thing.
Yeah.
I think maybe where it'll start to feel different is where I realize I don't have to do everything. Like if some modeling needs doing and there's someone else who's better than me at it, I can just ask them to do it and put them on, and we'll write the paper together.
Yeah, I think that's a good difference. Yeah, I think another sort of difference, I would say actually from my point of view, I think, doing a postdoc project, it is fairly similar to doing a PhD project. It's just that everything that you do is much faster. I guess you just become more efficient as time goes on in terms of, knowing how to do stuff. So like, having learned how to like do literature reviews and using the lab and putting together papers, the first time around doing your PhD, the next time you do it, it all becomes a bit faster and a bit faster as the years go by. So you end up, I think you end up, and I don't know if you agree with this, Ricky, that you end up doing, perhaps a PhD's worth of work, but because you're a bit more efficient in terms of what you're doing, and already figured out how to do things, you can, effectively like half the time or even less amount of time it takes to do these sorts of things. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Ricky.
Yeah, for sure. Like for instance, my my ESA postdoc that I'm going to be doing, or should I say research fellowship.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Well, you would say that. If you don't have a fellowship, you would say that.
Wow.
Yeah, so essentially that's a 2-year role, but I'm compressing the amount of work that I've done in my 3 years at PhD into the 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
but I wouldn't say that it feels any more hard work than a PhD. It's just because, as I said, you've done it once, and so you already have that body of experience to know how to do it the next time just a bit faster and a bit more efficiently.
Even things like, say, for instance, you're writing a paper for a conference or for a poster for a conference as well, because you literally have the template for those things as well. You can do it a lot faster, but also because you have the skill sets of knowing how to do those things.
Yeah.
With a PhD, that might take you a day to do that, or longer, obviously. But for a postdoc, you've already got that in place, so it takes less time.
Yeah, but it's a good point about being able to ask people stuff, and I think there is definitely less of an expectation that you have to actually figure things out from scratch yourself, and that I think one of the biggest things I actually learned from my first postdoc really is just to learn to say, you know what, I don't know, and I think there can be, particularly when if you suffer from imposter syndrome, which I think everybody does really, there's a tendency to just want to pretend that you know everything. But you know what? I think actually it's important to be able to say, I don't know the answer to that. Good question. And no one thinks any less of you for saying that.
So for instance, my role, obviously I'm working for Rolls-Royce at the moment. There are numerous things where I'm working with engineers and they'll say things and I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's totally fine, because it's not my job in the group to do those things. And I think working in like an industrial partnership role like this, you're almost thrown in the deep end with being put outside your comfort zone, but being fine with knowing I'm not the one who steers that part of the ship. Someone else does that role, and that's completely fine. Whereas with a PhD, I think you feel maybe more pressure to think, I need to learn everything that I need to do with this project, which isn't the case as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've very much been feeling the I must know everything vibe. I guess me and Tom are sort of halfway through our PhDs now. I'll say halfway, maybe slightly over, but halfway. I was thinking
to prevent the panic setting in, halfway.
I was thinking the other day about that Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes.
Where the more you know, the less confident you become.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, say someone on Facebook reads a Facebook post and suddenly they think they're an expert in something. Yeah. Whereas then you get someone who's done a bit of research into it, suddenly they go, oh no, I've looked into this issue a bit and I feel like I know nothing now. And then, as time goes on and they learn more about it, the confidence comes back. At the moment, I am feeling in the trough of that, probably midway through the PhD, feeling like, oh no, there's so much I need to do, so much I could know, should know.
No, but I think, that's a good thing, right, in a way, because I guess, that's the whole scientific process in a way, is continually questioning and wondering why. And, if everyone just like, yep, I knew everything, no one would continue, I suppose, would they? So I don't think you ever really escape that trough of feeling you don't really know anything. Well, I certainly haven't anyway. But that's why going back to what I was saying earlier about saying, it's okay to not know things. I think you have to reach a point of acceptance to go, you know what, there's things I don't know, but that's okay, because I have the time to then work through and understand these things. And actually, I think not having the time pressure because I guess obviously you guys doing a PhD, you have to complete your work by X amount of time, whereas I guess there isn't so much that pressure during a postdoc. I mean, yes, you've got funding for X number of years, but I mean, it's if you don't finish it at that time, it doesn't matter. You just continue a bit afterwards, and no one's going to take a degree away from you if you don't finish your project in time. So I think that lack of pressure is actually quite helpful.
John, as someone who's been through multiple postdocs, how do you juggle, like, so obviously Elliot's slightly doing it now, and I've been doing it myself as well, of you finished your PhD and then you have papers you're still writing after your PhD.
Yeah.
How do you juggle that with a postdoc where you might have multiple projects then that you've potentially not finished, but you have to carry on to the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, really. I don't really know. I have an answer for that, really. I mean, I guess you just have to be quite good at prioritizing at what are the important papers that you need to get out. And so, like, some papers that I have data sets for that I've not written, they're low priority, they're not immediately relevant to this project or other projects. And, you just got to think about strategically as well in terms of, what papers you think will be fast to get out in order to sort of help your CV and that kind of stuff, really. But yeah, I think learning how to juggle different projects and different papers, I think, is actually an important skill to try and learn during a postdoc, really. And it is difficult. Yeah, I do. Yeah, it is a struggle. Yeah, trying to keep on top of stuff, I think.
Do you like categorize, I'm working on this and this is what I'm paid for, so if I'm doing something else, that's got to be in the evening, or would you just be like, well, I'm working?
Well, it depends what the paper is, really. Yeah, I mean, I think if I was working on a terrestrial paper, I would feel bad for taking up too much of the working day working on that. So I would end up doing that more in my spare time. But yeah,
It's something I'm slightly struggling with at the moment, because obviously I've gone from doing Martian work and I've got papers. I've recently got a paper back from one of my supervisors with the edits on it. And I know you guys in the audience will probably tell I'm not mostly chill all the time.
Yeah.
But recently I've been getting anxiety over, I'm not working on that Mars paper that I've got edits back for, but my job is to work for Rolls-Royce, so I should be working on Rolls-Royce stuff all the time.
When you say edit backs, do you mean like reviewer comments or just comments?
No, from my supervisor. Just my supervisor's comments on it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, right, if I was in your position, I'd just work on the Mars paper because that's what you're more interested in doing. That's what you're going to be doing in your next postdoc.
But equally, I have something I need to... So with an industrial position like mine, well, it's industrial academic position, you have to present Rolls-Royce with something.
Right.
So it's not like you just go, okay, I'm done now, and my job was to get papers out of this. I have to present them with a thesis of sort, essentially. Yeah. So I have to work on that at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it all comes down to time management, really, doesn't it? I suppose. Yeah.
Have you considered managing your time better?
No. No. I mean, I've never
actually. Easy.
Yeah, exactly. I've never actually published any papers for my PhD because
you've never actually published any papers.
No, a little known fact.
Extraordinary you've made it this far.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary you've made it this far.
It is, isn't it? Really? Yeah. But no, I mean, when I started my first postdoc, my boss sort of said to me, you've just focused on these papers now, and ultimately you just got to do what you're told, I suppose.
Oh wow, that's surprising. I don't know if it's surprising.
That wasn't America, so
yeah,
yeah. So and then it just got bumped so far down the priority list. It's so far down the line now. Publishing stuff on Iceland, great if I have some spare time to put it together, but it's not immediately that relevant at the moment, considering I'm doing planetary stuff. So.
I guess the amount of literature that will be out now as well that you'd have to go through to.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why I've been putting that off as well. But so yeah.
And Marissa and Tom, you have this to look forward to. You have all of this to look forward to.
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
How much do you think the emphasis on writing papers during your PhD has changed over time?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I'm not really sure, because I guess when I did my PhD, it wasn't by publication. It was just an old-fashioned, long-written thesis. And I think in those days, like 2012, that was still the norm, I think. And I think it was more rarer to have people that publish by paper like that. And so, as a result, when you write a longhand thesis like that, I don't think you really have the time to write additional papers because you're already writing that equivalent volume of work in longhand. So I guess it's a bit different now, isn't it, really? I mean, you published by thesis, didn't you, Ricky?
By papers.
By
I feel like we were so lucky that we were allowed to do that.
It's a better system, right? I think
sure.
It sets you up better for future prospects, because at least you do come out with, even some, either publications or, almost ready paper drafts or whatever.
Exactly.
So
the idea of handing in your thesis and then having to edit it to make it into papers.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, so, and that's been a part of reason why nothing's ended up being published, because, I moved straight into a new postdoc. I had to get working in that work, and I just didn't really have the free time to.
We get it, John. We get all your excuses. It's fine. Don't worry. Yeah.
I actually find it, I think it feels like there's quite a lot of emphasis on like, well, you need some papers now to get a job. And it feels a little unfair of like, you're meant to be learning how to do this. And then people at the other end are expecting you to have already been basically a postdoc for 3 years.
Yeah.
Postdoc.
Yeah, I mean, there is, I don't know. I guess it's an interesting argument to have, really, isn't it? And to what degree an emphasis should be placed on a publication record. And that's, certainly some people argue that it's paramount, but is it really a true metric of how well someone performs?
Elliot, sorry, go on, Marissa, sorry.
I was just going to say, also going back to the time limit of a PhD, we always hear horror stories of, I didn't get my paper back from reviewers for however many months.
I mean, I think that's more and more common at the moment, considering the volume of papers that get submitted these days. Yeah, it can be tremendously long. Yeah,
I think that is another massive hurdle for getting, 3 papers out during a PhD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elliot, how did you have any papers published before you applied for your postdoc? No. Did they ask you for evidence that you were going to get papers published prior to it or anything?
I'm trying to remember. There was it was a long application form, and there was stuff about like more. It was quite a fair application form in a way. It's sort of like, what outputs have you done?
Mm-hmm. So was there no formal interview process?
No, it's just a really long proposal.
Oh wow, okay, fair enough, yeah. Because in my interview for, I don't know if I've already said it, for the European Space Agency, they did say, do you plan to get, so I'd put in that I had papers in submission, and they were essentially saying, are you going to make sure you get these papers published? And I was like, yes, I'm 100% going to make sure. So it was clearly a priority of theirs that I need to get papers published.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you get to sort of this postdoc sort of situation, I don't think people really mind what papers you write, as long as you're writing papers, because it's still an affiliation for the university, and it still reflects well on everybody if you're publishing, regardless whether it's directly relevant to your project or not.
Does your supervisor, John, I'm not sure if you call it supervisor or your PI, do they have a lot of influence over what you're allowed to publish and where you're allowed to publish it? And I guess that question goes for you, Marissa, and Tom as well. For a PhD level, do you feel like your supervisor has a lot of leeway? A lot of push on what that is?
I mean, I guess we sit down and we chat about, what things are there to be written, and we both agree what the priority is for getting papers out. But I would say that my boss is, certainly more happy for me to write terrestrial papers at the same time as doing other papers or whatever. But
I guess. Oh, you go on, Marissa.
I think during the first year of my PhD, we sort of had a big sit down and sort of went, here's how we could split your project up into papers. So that's always it's been good to have that as sort of the brief for each of them. So far I haven't been straying too far from that. And then in terms of, what journal does it go in? I guess that depends by supervisor. Some are more ambitious than others, and then some will have different areas of expertise. So my supervisory team is half lunar science, half volcanology. So different sides are more familiar with different journals. So that's helpful, definitely.
I'd say, I think from discussions with my supervisors, they my input is definitely valued and important, but I think I also respect their experience to maybe have thought of things that I probably haven't. So I try and incorporate the two, although, I'm working on things in parallel at the moment. So it's all partly done rather than completing one bit and then completing the next bit. So it's a bit difficult to say. Although I think if I had a particularly strong idea about something and it was not ludicrous, then I think they'd probably support it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess part of the training is be able to develop, your own freedom and, experience on how to organize these things. So yeah, I guess also in the summer, I'm just thinking about what we've all been doing then. So Marissa, and Tom as well, you had your second year Viva?
Yeah.
You did indeed. So we're officially old now.
I think we spoke a bit last year about what the first year Viva was like. And for me, the second year Viva was very similar, except that I kind of knew a bit more in advance. So we had to write a report, basically. And whereas in the first year, we had to do a lot of literature review and kind of background description, this was a bit more straightforward in that it was sort of essential background and then project planning effectively. I guess, would you say, Marissa?
Yeah, so both bits of it were the same in the first year and the second year. The report and then like the mock Viva. I'd say in the first year there was more emphasis on that report, but then this year there's been more emphasis on the mock Viva. Like, I don't know what yours was like, Tom, but I got a lot more in-depth questions about the actual methods I was using. So, about the inner workings of like the computer modeling that I'm using, why did you use this parameter instead of this parameter? How did you calculate this one? There's a lot more detail in the mock Viva this year than there was last year. Intense.
So are you both now like official PhD candidates? Is this the point that the university says, yes, you can go on to submit a PhD?
I think so.
Because I think when I did it, in your first year, you were just an MPhil candidate, and how whether you passed your second year report or not was dependent on whether you then progressed to be a full PhD candidate, and the university effectively give you the green light to say, yes, you can submit at next year or whatever.
I think Manchester, it's at the end of the first year.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Option for the MPhil.
Right.
But it's a useful checkpoint.
Yeah, no,
I feel that like both your supervisors who kind of give feedback on your report and can be present, albeit kind of quietly at the discussion for the Viva, both they and the kind of the internal examiner look at what you've done and the way you've laid out your plans. And it's quite comforting to know that on the other side of it, if you stick to those goals and there isn't a global pandemic, then they think that you should be able to submit and do a good job of it. So that's quite nice.
Yeah, and I guess it's good. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I found that the Viva was quite interesting because it felt a lot more like a discussion and a lot less like I was being quizzed.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's good though. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, so but it was quite unusual to me to have the feeling of being asked a question and the other person just believing the answer that I give. I'm quite used to answering questions under the assumption that the other person knows more about it than I do, and that they're testing what I'm saying. And it was quite, at first it was actually a little bit kind of uncomfortable to just like have what I was saying taken at like, yeah, okay, cool. And I guess that's something that you need to kind of get used to as you become the person that knows more about the subject. So it makes sense, but it was quite nice.
Well,
that's good. There's a strange feeling where you go, oh, they're asking a question because they don't know the answer. They're genuinely just asking a question like a normal person would.
It's good you guys have realised that though, because when you go into your actual Viva, that's exactly where your headspace needs to be.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say it's good preparation and practice for Viva, isn't it?
We recorded the second year Viva as. I don't know if you had yours recorded, Tom.
Oh yeah, because I guess this would have been over Zoom, wouldn't it? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so the person I had as the internal assessor wanted to watch it back afterwards to write down some feedback. It was the first time that they'd done a Viva as well before, so they wanted to, see how they were doing asking questions. So my supervisor sent me the recording afterwards, which was really useful for writing down everything that we talked about and all the feedback. But very strange.
Did you do any second takes? Did you go, oh, can you ask me that question again?
And we'll edit this out,
we'll edit this part out. Yeah.
It's really cool that they caught your spontaneous stand-up routine in the middle there.
A really type 5.
Yeah.
It was.
I'm very glad I didn't record my PhD Viva.
I'm not sure I'd want to watch recording. Bloody hell.
The
Was
weird
all
thing
right
is,
about it.
so in my actual Viva, and you guys will have the same thing, the time where you don't know how to answer something takes so long. Like, you just feel like I was sat there for an hour not knowing what to say, when in reality it's like a few seconds, but you're just like, oh my God. And you don't focus at all on the things you did answer correctly or you did know how to answer. So
Wow.
I remember going out just thinking, God, I messed that up entirely, but it was completely fine.
Yeah, I had a bit like, I think you might have calculated this wrong. Have you calculated this wrong? I don't know. Maybe. It's terrible.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm sending you flowers right now. They'll be there tomorrow.
One of the questions I was asked, one of the examiners said, right, your supervisor's not in the room. What do you really think?
I think the same that I thought before. In my head, everything that I say in my Viva is going to be in that awful high-pitched, fraught voice. It's going to have no weight to anything I say.
John, you had your supervisor in the room for your PhD.
No, but I mean, what we're saying is now he's not in the room. What do you really think about this?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
The final question I got for mine, which was actually quite nice, was at the end of the PhD, what kind of scientist are you going to be?
That's a nice question.
What aspect of your project are you going to carry on with? Do you want to carry on with computer modeling? Do you want to carry on with GIS and image processing? Or, if you do any internships or side projects, do you want to go and do that instead? Which was actually really nice to.
Yeah.
What did you answer?
Yeah.
I said that I'd like to stay doing planetary things, and that I'd probably lean more towards the using GIS to solve questions about lunar morphology.
Yeah.
That's a nice question.
Yeah.
What I've realized from my PhD, and I think our guest next week will really emphasize this point, Matt Baum, who we're having next week, who's had a variety of different topics that he's worked in. You realize the skills you learn in a PhD, you can apply them to so many things.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make, actually. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, talking of next week's guest, we've got some absolutely fantastic episodes lined up for you this season.
Yeah, so we're recording this at the end of September, but we've actually got most of October's episodes already planned, which is great. We'll be going on a bit of a journey through the solar system, as usual. So we'll be going around some of the different volcanoes on Earth, then moving on to the moon and thinking about in situ resource utilization. Then, as Ricky said, we'll be going on to Mars, speaking to Matt Baum. And then finally, I think we'll be going all the way out to Enceladus to think about the structure and how we can model the crust of Enceladus. So there's some little clues for the episodes that are coming up for everyone.
Excellent. Well, I'm really excited, and I hope at home you are too. So, do join us. As per usual, we'll be back in your ear holes every Wednesday.
And eye holes as well.
And eye holes. Yeah,
you can also get us via eye holes now
as
well.
That's a terrible mental image, isn't it? But regardless, thank you very much for watching, and we're excited to be back. Don't forget, of course, if you want more Earth and solar system content, we're across all the social medias, aren't we now? From the Twitters to the Facebooks to the Instagrams. We even have a blog. How about that? Episodes will be on stream now and in the episode description. But in the meantime, I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.